president of the National Okay, sorry, I was interrupted by the recording. So we usually keep a recording to eventually, with everybody's approval, post to our YouTube. But anyways, again, I started to say that I'm Pat Tinto, president of the National Organization for Italian American Women. We still have some feedback going on. I guess it's right. We'd like to welcome you tonight on behalf of our board for our special program in honor of Women's History Month, Siamo Arrivate, or We Have Arrived. Tonight, we celebrate Women's History, La Festa della Donna, by acknowledging that our roots are deep with passion and our history is a shared, rich story that we want to pass on to all those who have followed us here to this country. Today, we're going to be hearing from 4 different women and 1 brave man who can trace their ancestry to Italy. They will reflect on how their common heritage has influenced the course of their life and choices that they have made. To prove that we are an all-embracing, inclusive community, I want to introduce a moderator for tonight's conversation, Frank Piero, a Chicago native and the host of Keeping It Real with Frankie D at the website ItalianAmericanLife.com. His series called The Italian American Moment is featured on their website, and he tells the stories of our unsung heroes. Frank also believes in making our authentic culture accessible to all. Is that mine? Sorry. Accessible to all. And he's also one of the editors of the book Siamo Arrivate. Just waiting for someone to check their sound. Okay, I'm sorry. So I'll just repeat that. His series is called The Italian American Moment, in which he tells the stories of our unsung heroes. And Frank believes in making our authentic culture accessible to all who we reach. He also is one of the editors of the book Siamo Arrivate, Italian Women from Chicago, and we thank him for bringing it to the attention of Noia. He also has written 2 children's books, My Big Family and Teddy Bianco Goes to Italy. So now, before I turn it over to Frank, I just wanted to ask everybody for our own, if you could keep yourselves muted so that until the conversation is over, then we will take questions. But if you can now add your name into the chat box and where you're calling from so we can know who's here with us. And then we'll be taking questions if the conversation is over. And Eleanor or Frank or I will call on people who've written their questions in the box and hear their reactions. We hope that you all enjoy this conversation. We just had, I think we have one of our guests maybe having technical difficulties, so we're actually right now don't have a full panel, but we're going to try to start. And I'm not sure if we're missing one of the panelists who's hasn't identified themselves on the screen. But anyway, I'm going to turn it over to Frank. Are you ready now? We have a full audience here to start our program.
I think I am ready. Yes. Thank you so much, Pat. And thank you for this opportunity. And thanks to the National Organization of Italian American Women. This is really a great event. Like you said, we're celebrating Women's History Month and the release of our new book, Italian Women in Chicago, Volume 2, Siamo Arrivate, We Have Arrived. I want to thank all the viewers. It seems like we have viewers from all over the country. This is very exciting. I know it's sometimes difficult with modern technology. It doesn't never go perfectly, but I'm sure we're going to have a great panel discussion. I would also like to thank the panelists, our 4 panelists, and hopefully they are all here. Maria Laurino, Marina Lenza, Christina Marrocco, and Letizia Sorano. As Pat said, my name is Frank Piero, and I am the podcast host of Italian American Life with Frankie D. I am Frankie D at ItalianAmericanLife.com, and all my episodes are there on the website, and I have written small children's books. Actually, my 5th will be coming out. They highlight Italian culture, traditions, language. The last 2 are actually bilingual. And the last book, which hopefully next week will be coming out, is called I'm Proud to be Italian American, and I'm proud of the book. And it's almost like an ultimate guide for real pride, which is very important nowadays because we have so much out there in social media, and it just kind of gets a little hazy what we should really be proud of. So for me, these are real important reasons to be proud. A must read for every youngster, but even a must read for adults as well. So, and also, I'd like to bring up our Italian Women in Chicago book. I am one of the editors, along with Anna and Julie Weiss and Dominic Condoloro, who is the head of our library at the Italian Cultural Center at Casa Italia in Chicago. Dominic's the head of the library, and there is a great group of volunteers that really work hard. They come there on a weekly basis. They keep the library going. They keep the museums going. And they were so helpful with the book. Some of them contributed stories, and they spent countless hours proofreading for us. And they are actually having a watch party at the Italian Cultural Center in our beautiful Florentine room. So hi to all of them. And let's get started on our panel discussion. Our first panelist, Maria Laurino, is an author, essayist, and journalist. She is the author of Were You Always an Italian? Old World Daughter, New World Mother, The Italian Americans, A History, and her most recent book, The Price of Children. Maria, welcome to the panel. Thank you. Thank you for being here.
Oh, thank you so much. And I always thank Noya. I love the organization and your events, and I'm delighted to be here.
What my question would be to you is, being that it's March, and March is Women's History Month, tell us what that means to you. And are there any women in history or in your history that have had a notable effect on you?
Sure. Well, I think the first thing, as a woman, Italian-American woman, of Southern Italian descent, to think about Women's History Month is a means of thinking about the unbelievable progress that women have made and the life that I was able to forge in the United States that is so unimaginable in so many ways, thinking of my ancestresses and the fact that both of my grandmothers were illiterate, and that I was able to become a writer and a journalist and write books is, I feel very, very grateful for. So definitely one of gratitude. But I also think today, in this terms of reflection, it's a difficult time for women around the world, that lots of rights. Am I still on? I hear it.
You are on,
That
yes.
women's rights are under siege in many places. So it's kind of a mixed bag in that way. And in terms of women who've had an effect on me and influence on me, I have to talk about writers because, reading was my great joy since I was a girl, my great escape, and my hope for, imagining a life different than the life of my ancestresses. So I think the first writer who had such a significant effect on me is the great English novelist and nonfiction writer Virginia Woolf. When I was in college and graduate school, reading her novels and her nonfiction books, A Room of One's Own and Three Guineas, which talked about the difficulties for women in a male-dominated world and the necessity to have a room of one's own in order to contemplate, to think, to write, to find some means of being able to support yourself, was just, it was really transformative. And then as I got older, because I was only reading English literature in college because I was an English major, I thought I'd like to turn to Italian writers, and because I know they can tell me something very specific to my experience. And I think the two I would highlight is the post-war Italian writer Natalia Ginzburg, a brilliant essayist, novelist, and memoirist. And most recently, Elena Ferrante. I was just blown away by her work from the time I read her first Slender novels before the Neapolitan novels. And I saw so many parallels of women of my generation, of the kinds of issues that we were facing in terms of class and discrimination, in terms of the importance of education, and that I saw in her protagonist in Italy. So I really felt that she was speaking to us too. And I guess that's a great writer, that you could be a continent away and feel like the author is speaking directly to you.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much. Next, and I believe she is here now with us, is Marina Lenza. Marina.
Yes,
Yes, Marina, I'm going to explain
that
who you are. Thank you for
I'm
being
here.
here.
Thank you.
Marina is a native of Abruzzo, but lives in Rome with her husband and children. She came to Chicago about 4 years ago to work as the director of the education office of the Italian Consulate General in Chicago, in charge of promoting the Italian language and culture in the schools of the Chicago and Detroit areas. Marina, thank you for being here.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Hello, everybody. Thank you so much. Thank you to the organizers of this meeting. And thanks again to Frank Di Piero and Dominic Candeloro and Anna Weiss that invited me to be part of this wonderful book some months ago, last year actually, and join this initiative, Save Your Story, just as an update portrait of Italian women in Chicago. As director of the Education Office of the Italian Consulate, tasked of supporting Italian language and culture teaching in the American schools and universities for Chicago and Detroit districts, I'm really deeply grateful and honored for this invitation. I never expected to have this opportunity. I'm so much proud to have been included in this collection, collection of Italianity among women in Chicago, even if I can tell you that as Frank Di Piero reached out to me, I felt, with this proposal, I felt a little, intimidated to find myself in such heterogeneous collection. I think that the book is a powerful testament to the rich and diverse experiences of Italian women who have made their mark in the city. For many, it is a chronicle of the struggles, triumphs, and legacies as immigrants who built lives and communities over generations. For sure, my inclusion in this book presents a distinctive perspective that is shaped by my I can say temporary stay in Chicago, while others may view the city as a permanent home. Actually, my time here is limited, offering a unique lens through which to get in touch and reflect and think about identity, culture, and belonging. Nevertheless, being part of this book.
Please?
Sorry?
I'm having problems with the audio, that's all.
Not sure what that is, but
I'm sorry.
You can't hear me?
I can hear you.
No,
Yes.
no, no.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Let me know if I can talk or wait.
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah, go ahead.
Okay. Being part of this book holds great personal and cultural significance to me, even if my stay is short term and temporary. My stay here required important.
Can you come, please?
Sorry?
I'm not sure. No, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Marina.
Okay. My short stay here required adaptation and also meant an opportunity of cultural exchange, and just to share the impact of Italian heritage and the ways in which even brief connections can leave lasting impressions. That's what I feel. Additionally, my professional commitment has meant a strong connection, has offered a strong opportunity to connect to the Italian community in Chicago. My inclusion in Italian women in Chicago is both an honor and a responsibility. It is an honor because within my limitations, I have contributed with my story. I'm aware that I may have contributed with my story to a testament and to a documentation of the women in Chicago and women presence in Chicago. And a responsibility because my story adds to the diverse voices that define what it means to be an Italian contemporary woman in the city. Whether one's time in Chicago is temporary or permanent, the shared experience of heritage, identity, and cultural expression remain invaluable and very meaningful for me and my life from a personal and professional point of view. So thanks again for this opportunity.
Marina, thank you, because your inclusion, I thought, was just so important and such a to get the perspective of an Italian woman who's here in America, in Chicago more specifically, on a limited basis, was just invaluable. I was just so happy that you were a part of the book and to get your story, and your position is just such an important position to be promoting Italian culture and language. That is something, I wish we did 24/7 every day of the year. So no, thank you. It was just the whole story, how you came here, and it's a great part for the book, and we're honored to have you in that book. So thank you, Marina.
Frank?
Thank you for your appreciation and thank you for the opportunity. Thanks, everybody.
Sorry, Frank.
Yes.
I see
Sì,
that
scusa.
Dominic has a
Sì,
question.
sì,
She has
no.
raised her hand. Dominic?
Okay.
Vuoi uscire e rientrare?
Sorry. No, Dominic.
Should we get to the question now, or should we go to Christina?
Audio. Sì. Ah, dear. Aumentalo. Aumenta.
Please,
Dominic,
please mute your
Dominic, you're muted. We cannot hear
microphone.
you.
Yeah. So Dominic,
Era vero.
Technical difficulties
Non si niente. E qua?
prevented us from participating fully, so go ahead.
We can hear you now, Dominic.
Così.
No comment or question from me here now.
I don't think he
Okay,
can,
all right.
or he can hear you.
All right, but thank you. As always, it was great to see you. Okay,
Yeah, okay, thanks.
our next panelist, and that is the Florentine room, by the way. That looks like a mimosa. Our next panelist is Christina Marrocco. And Christina is a writer and professor of English, creative writing, and women's literature studies. She is the author of Addio, Love Monster. And in addition to contributing a story to the Italian Women in Chicago Volume 2 book, she also wrote the introduction. So Christina, welcome to the panel.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody, for having me.
Being that you wrote the introduction, tell us a little bit about the book and the overall story it tells and what its significance would or could be in the future.
Okay. I thought I was going to get the same question.
Oh, no, never the same.
No. All right. So I've got this. It was my absolute honor to write that introduction. One of the things that really stuns me about this book is the variety. This is not a book of Italian American writers or a book of Italian American businesswomen or a book about Italian American motherhood or grandmotherhood or poets. This is everything, right? This is a cross section of Italian American women in society, and in this particular society, right? Whether they are here for a moment or they've been here all of their lives. I used kind of the symbolism of the Roman goddess Minerva in the introduction, in order to kind of highlight that weaving that happens here. And I think I'm so proud of this book, even though, I'm just the person who wrote an introduction, right? But I'm proud of all of the people whose work, and not just written work, but life's work, is chronicled in this book. And just recently, I was talking to Dominic Candeloro about how this book hopefully can serve as a model for other communities to do the same thing, to archive, to capture, to honor the women, Italian and Italian American women within those communities, and also to preserve those realities. As assimilation happens, sometimes things become forgotten. And I think a book like this really allows people to tell their stories, or to tell the stories of others. In fact, we have male writers in this book who honored women poets, women in their lives as well. So I think it's just a beautiful box of chocolates that a reader can dip into and get something very different each time, but always something that is of the highest caliber and respect. And it just makes me really proud to have been part of it.
Well, thank you. No, we were happy to have you. And yes, it definitely was all those things. And the part I love about our book is there's different headings. So, you open up that table of contents and you see entrepreneurial spirit, you see pop culture, you see spiritual, and it just tells, there's just so many stories, and it just there's one about a club, Maria Adelaide Club. So this Maria Adelaide Club started in like 1896 of Italian women in Chicago. Now, if one thinks of 1896 in Chicago and Italian women, you would think of poverty, you would think of despair. Instead, it was the complete opposite. It was a high society, well-to-do, very wealthy Italian women that started this club in 1896, and it went on for decades and decades and decades, and they helped Italian immigrants that were down on their luck. So, I mean, it was a great story, and I feel like without the book, stories like that die. I never heard of this group, and I was so happy to have that in the book, and proud about it as well. So
yeah. Without the variety of stories, without
Non è un audio, scusa.
without the detailed differences, right? What we end up with is one story, and it's one story that's not even of our making, right? And that's where stereotype and generality and vagueness come in. But when you have a selection that is all of the realities and all of the experiences, well, as much as it can be, right? A lot of different ones. Then you see the variety, and that there is no kind of lockstep experience, but there is also commonality of spirit and commonality of past. So
absolutely. Thank you. Is Letizia Sorano with us?
I am afraid not.
Yes, I am.
Oh, hi.
Just
Oh,
my
excellent.
son
Yeah.
put me in
Okay.
mute, so I couldn't do anything.
No worries. Let me
I
introduce
listen
who
to
you
every-
are, okay? So Letizia Sorano is a native of Rome and a former teacher. Her story falls under the heading Entrepreneurial Spirit. Letizia owns a very successful bakery and Roman-style eatery in Chicago. Welcome. Thank you for being with us.
To invite me. I excuse myself for my English. I was listening to everybody, but like I said many times, I didn't study English, so I learn on the go.
No worries.
I'm so sad that everybody already used the word proud and honored. What I want to say too. Very happy to be part of a group, very happy, all the difference, like you say about all the women, and beautiful for me, write down my story and my life, because I check on myself. I could check on myself the big jump I did, being an Italian, already 40, 45 years woman, coming here, starting in in a very different place, ambiente, how you say ambiente? You understand ambiente, no?
Atmosphere.
Yeah,
Place.
atmosphere, yeah.
Yes. Letizia, if I may. So we were at an event in the Florentine Room at the Italian Cultural Center. And I don't know, we started talking,
Yeah.
and she was telling me her story about coming to, it was not your typical immigrant story, leaving Rome with her husband, her children, and coming to Chicago. And immediately I just said to her, you got to write your story and be in our book, because it was just too interesting. And thank God she did. She did. She could have said, no, I'm not interested, but she did it. So what does it mean to you to be a part of this book?
I am very, very happy. Make me feel, when you come from another country, I already wrote this, you feel isolated, no one understands you, not only for the language, how you are. My reading the book, writing the book, coming to Casa Italia, make me feel part of something that is very important in the life for your brain equilibrium, your life, and reflection of what I did and what I accomplished against any odd, any people that know me in Italy couldn't believe it, that I was made such a jump, a change from being teacher, catechist, wherever, always with the boys, girls, children, and becoming instead someone that opened up, like I explained with my son, a bakery. My son, I needed it because I was so little American. I couldn't understand many American things. I was too Italian, but from a point of view of business. My like a soul, I felt, because when I arrived in this country, I felt that for the first time, I didn't want to come. I didn't like it at all. I didn't like anything, but I felt for the first time free. You say, why, Letizia, free? Because I felt that I could do whatever I want to do, wherever. Things that in Italy, I never feel possible, for critic or for difficulties, for corruption, when you want to do something, no. And so I'm very happy that I reflect writing this book.
Well, we're happy to have you. And another aspect of the book that I'm proud of is that there are stories from women that came from Italy in 1900.
Yeah.
We have stories of women that came in the 50s, in the 60s,
yes.
in the 70s, in the 80s, in the 90s, and like Marina 3-4 years ago. So really, it's a nice broad timeline. So, okay, Letizia, thank you. Going back to Maria, you're still with us, Maria, right? Maria Laurino?
Can you see me? Hear me?
Yes, now I can, yes. Please tell us about your first memoir. Were you always in Italian? With a question mark. Were you always in Italian? And how the title came to be.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, that was an interesting and fun experience. Well, I was working at the Village Voice. I was a staff writer there. That was my first job in journalism. And I very much, and I was writing about social cultural history issues, things like housing, homelessness. And then I began to have this interest in wanting to write about Italian American culture too. And I had this wonderful assignment to do a profile of Mario Cuomo, who was then the governor of New York. And so I went up to Albany and spent some time with him. He was incredibly generous with his time. And I had several long interviews. And I was trying to place the governor in an ethnic cultural tradition. And so I had like this list for him, well, did Fiorello LaGuardia influence you, the great mayor of New York? Did the East Harlem congressman Vito Marcantonio influence you? I mean, I kept going through this list. And he looked at me and he said, were you always an Italian? And I thought it was such a brilliant question. And it just hit me at that moment what he meant. And I said, no, I wasn't always an Italian, with this kind of childlike guilt. And he said, oh, I know all about ethnic self-hate. And then began to tell me how he tied for #1 in his law school class, but the dean told him he needed to change his name to get a job on Wall Street. And he would do this wonderful riff, can you imagine me as Mark Conrad, me with my saggy eyes under the eyes and nose and all this. And he was, very, very charming. And I wrote that feature story, and it really resonated and stayed with me. And so when years later, I decided I wanted to start to write books, I wanted to write a book that talked about the kinds of stereotypes that I faced growing up. I grew up in a very middle-class section of a very wealthy suburb in New Jersey. And when we moved into the block, people would whisper, oh, another Italian family. And so you grow up, and it was a time of assimilation, and assimilation means to disappear. You weren't able to claim your cultural identity. You had to just pretend you were American, but it was hard for me to pretend because my hair was darker than everyone else's, and I had all these vowels in my name. And I had a 7th grade teacher look at me after I said here at a roll call and just stare at me and say, do you speak English? So that kind of really sort of mortifying things. So when the governor asked me that question, I got it. I wasn't always an Italian. I had to become an Italian. And that really first started when I traveled to Rome and I saw this amazing city. And I'm like, wait a second, why does everyone have this prejudice against Italian Americans when this history is extraordinary? So my book became these different looks at different aspects of Italian American culture, whether politically through someone like Mario Cuomo and his contributions, or clothes, how we dress, the foods we eat, the dialect words we use. And, we thought that Were You Always an Italian was a great way to kind of talk about that and encapsulate that idea.
May I ask you, how old were you when you made that first trip to Italy?
I was right out of college, actually. I have a brother who's 8 years older than I am, and he very generously, neither of us had ever been abroad, or ever been on a plane, and he gifted me with a trip to Europe, and we got Euro passes, and I first went to England to go to Bloomsbury and see the streets that Virginia Woolf walked on. And then I went to Italy and said, oh my God, I'm home. I feel like I'm home. How can this be?
Right. And that's why I always, I preach, a trip to Italy is worth its weight in gold. You really want to find your ethnic identity, and there's nothing it compares to here. You could do everything you think is going to be Italian here. Boy, that trip to Italy is outstanding. And by the way, I am currently reading your book, Were You Always an Italian? And enjoying it very much. So.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Thank you. Marina Lenza.
Here I am.
Marina, you say, okay.
Yes.
Real quick, as your time here in Chicago, in America, comes to an end, what would you always remember about this experience? What will you take back with you about this experience living here in Chicago, in the Midwest, in the cold? It's very cold today.
Thank you, Frank, for this question. But before the answer, I would like to ask you how many minutes or hours I could have to answer this question.
All right. Wow, that's very nice of you.
I don't want to scare you. I don't want to scare you, guys.
A couple minutes.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you, really. My experience in Chicago, as you anticipated, started in 2021 and really meant and means a lot to me as an opportunity to realize, I don't know if the word is the right one, but anyway, I hope you understand, the dream of a young girl who was attracted by experiences of diverse cultural context abroad. I was dreaming when I was 25, 30 years to work in international organizations. And that was my dream. Now, this dream came true almost at the end of my career, because, you know, life makes decision for us sometimes. But the incredible and amazing result that when I was almost at the end of my career, I had the opportunity to go abroad to work in a very different context, and the possibility to represent Italy, my country, doing my best to spread Italian culture, to support association organizations committing in Italian language and culture, and especially to support teachers of the Italian programs, assisting and helping them in their passionate and really great job. I'm proud. I was proud since the beginning to give a contribution to spread a cultural model that I feel so much inspired to humanities, to the values of respect and hospitality, referring both to tradition, that is our heritage, and modernity, that is an attitude to accept challenges and innovation. And all this was really a great challenge and a great opportunity to me. Teaching a foreign language as an educator is a subtle and complex art which involves transmitting love for knowledge, but also the awareness of building a kind of bridge and facilitating understanding and dialogue. Chicago welcomed me, offering me a great opportunity, to me and also to my kids, as Frank anticipated. They came so many times and visited me here in Chicago. As my time in Chicago comes to an end, I find myself reflecting on the moments that have made this experience unforgettable. These memories will stay with me forever. And I will always remember skyline lights at night, season transforming the streets, snowfall, but also the awareness that Chicago is a city inspired by beauty, by art, its architecture, and my husband is an architect, architecture and music tradition that are important aspects, important component for my marriage, are key ingredients for my marriage, because me and Dino, my husband, are have much in common on this aspect. I will never forget the diversity of culture and stories that shape this city, and I often find myself reflecting on many moments, on people I had the privilege to meet, and human experiences that have made this journey and also this short stay unforgettable and deeply meaningful to my life. Beyond the city itself, living in Chicago has taught me valuable lessons about adaptability, cultural and diversity, and the great value of embracing a new experience. That's why we can share that home is not just a place, but a feeling. And At the beginning, I felt a bit of homesickness. I missed my kids that remained in Italy, but then I started gradually to feel at home. And this is wonderful now for me to say that. And I will carry this experience with gratitude wherever life will take me next. I just want to say that my grandfather, Marina Lenza, emigrated from Italy in 1910. He lived and worked in New York as an immigrant, of course, for some years. And afterwards, due probably to homesickness, he decided to go back to Italy, as his dream was to be again with the rest of the family in our village in Abruzzo. And when I was a child, I loved so much listening him to tell me about his experience in USA. And so it is really incredible that almost the end of my career, I had this opportunity, because we can say that history repeats itself sometimes. And this is
yes.
Really, thank you. And
thank
that's
you.
why I feel so honored and glad. Thank you, Letizia, for underlining these two important words: awareness, proud, and honor.
Yes.
This is my experience in Chicago, professionally and as human experience. Thank you. Thanks
so much.
again.
Thank you. Thank you. Elena, should we get to questions, or can we questions and answers, or
we have one question for the moment. Have you thought about translating this book into Italian?
Absolutely. We are working on it. We are planning on translating the entire book in Italian, with the hopes of promoting it in Italy, especially in like the villages that are in the book. I think it would be a great thing. I'm very much looking forward to that. So that's going to be a task as well. It was a big job just to put this book together, and now it's going to be a big job to put it all in Italian and format it. But we will get it done. We will persevere and get it done.
I'll be happy to help you. This is
Whoever said
Generosa.
that, we will grab you with open arms. Yes. Yes.
Me too. Me too,
publishing
Frank.
I'm a publishing professional.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Generosa.
Okay.
Saying that. Thank you. We will love all the help we could get. We will take. Yes. Thank you.
Okay.
Next question.
No, in the chat there was just this one about the translation to Italian. So if we want to,
Can I ask Christina another question on the panel?
sure.
Okay, Christina Marrocco, being that you teach a women's literature studies course, what does Women's History Month mean to you, and do you discuss it in your course?
Yes. Yes, we discuss it in the course. The course is as if it were Women's Literature or Women's History Month every month, right? And in some ways, Women's History Month exists because traditionally women writers and women artists of all sorts have, not gotten equal attention and equal support financially or otherwise, right? So we talk about it. We read extensively. I make sure that there are Italian American women authors in my class for the students to choose from. I teach at community college, so I'm teaching young women. And, this semester in particular has been both somewhat harrowing and very enlightening and very hopeful. My students are so engaged in women's history. I'm writing personally women's history in my novel. They're writing bits of memoir. They're talking about what's happening in their lives that ties into the literature that they're reading. I can't overstate the importance of not just having the month, but acknowledging the month and acknowledging what it's really about and digging deeply into it. As a teacher, as a writer, and, you know, just as a human being, I think that women are often de facto mentors to other women without even knowing it, right? So we have mentor programs and we have things like that, but we're often also kind of ad hoc mentoring each other. And I think just the acknowledgement of the time, the timing of, you know, the acknowledgement of the month, all of that is really important. It's ritual, and it's kind of new ritual, and it's really it's crucial. It's critical. There was something else I wanted to say, but I've turned 58 and now they just kind of, you know.
I have a question for you from
Yeah.
Jessica. Yes, she's asking you, what books do you normally teach and discuss in your course?
So I have a wide variety of books that I use. I actually make an extensive list of critical theory books and an extensive list of fiction books. And each one of my students has to choose one book from each of those lists. And they get to choose because I want students to have agency in who they're reading and what they're reading. So they get all kinds of combinations. One student may be reading Virginia Woolf, A Room of Her Own, and also reading the 7 or 8 Deaths of Stella Fortuna at the same time. And that student is seeing what those have in common. Another student might be reading Sandra Cisneros, where I teach is a Hispanic serving institution. So I make sure that there are choices there that will reflect my students and their identities. And then they all come together and they talk about what they're getting from these different authors, but they're mainly what we would call ethnic women writers. And we see kind of what the larger scope is, and then we dig down into the individual pieces as well. So it's just, you can tell as I talk about it, it's my favorite class to teach, right? It's like going to the well every day and filling up. I get as much, you know, it's a cliche. But I also wanted to say, well, I've got the floor, that Maria's books were seminal for me as a student. I'm not that much, if any, younger than her, but I started school late. In my 30s, and so I was in graduate school in my 40s, and her work, you know, appears in my dissertation, and it was seminal in a chapter on Mama del Sud and the evil eye in Italian American literature. So, you know, I think one thing to recognize in Women's History Month is how women feed each other, and that we have to be cognizant of this, and we need to do it with intention as well as accidentally.
There is another question for you, Christina. They're asking if you also teach intercultural comparative literature.
I do not. I teach creative writing, children's literature, women's literature, composition right now. We don't have that course, but I'm going to jot it down, and it could be something that we create.
Okay.
Because I would love to teach it.
If I can just, I wanted to thank Christina for that. I really appreciate your words and hearing that. And I want to just add that I do think women supporting women have been one of the most important things in my career. And it's wonderful that women are in so many positions of power today, that we can work together, and we have similar values and vantage points. And I know with my last book project, I'm meeting literary translators from Italy to journalists from Italy to those in the United States. They were so supportive and helpful, and that's been just a great gift of women reading, supporting, working with other women.
And also, I would say that we hope that this book, you know, inspires other individuals, cities, write our stories, write our stories, put them down, document them, because if we don't do it, nobody's gonna. And if they do it, sometimes they do it in a bad light. So we need to keep doing this kind of thing. And we're very happy with our book is a unique red colored book with a round circle in the middle with pictures, various of collage of pictures of the women in the book. And a couple of interesting points about the book. One, the beehive hairdo was created by an Italian-American woman in Chicago that owned a salon on Michigan Avenue, which is our main street, downtown Chicago, in the 50s. She owned a salon and she created that hairdo. And then on another aspect, there is a club in Chicago from Alta Villa Milicia in Sicily. And they have a fest every year. In fact, it's the 125th year here in Chicago. They've been celebrating it over 400 years in Sicily. It's for Maria Santissima Lauretana. And they have two little girls, 10, 11. It's called La Volata. And they put them on these harnesses over the street, and then they wheel them in and they meet in the middle above the street, and they say these Sicilian prayers. And it's like a rite of passage. So I asked this woman I know is a friend of mine, I said, write that story. She gave it to her niece, was a college student, 21-year-old girl. And she wrote this story that if it doesn't put you to tears, you're not breathing, because it was all about the experience of being this. And she was an angel, and her sisters were angels, and her mother was an angel, and her aunts, and everybody. And there's just lots of stories like this. So we're really proud of this book. And like I said, I hope it inspires others as well. How are we doing on time? Any more questions?
No. I'm just putting the links for the books in the chat. So I think that Pat, our president, wants to say something about telling Italian women's stories. Yeah.
Yes. Hi, I'm sorry. I was just putting something in the chat in response to about ordering the books from Sarah Elston, Amazon. Maybe Eleanor, you could put the link in, but we work with Italian American books in Boston. They're also a cultural center there. In fact, they have Liz from Allen in there from Boston representing them. And they offered their facility as a clubhouse in essence for Noya when we can have events in Boston. And we've had many conversations there on what it's like to be an Italian American woman, with guest authors and also members from the area. And they also host the Italian American Writers Association. They're at that particular spot. But the owner, Nicola Rocchio, I forget his last name exactly, he offers Noya members a 10% discount on the book. So if we have a code, I don't know if it's Noya 10 or whatever, we can try to update it. Or if you mentioned when you go to order the books from the website. So we also ask the authors who were on this particular panel if they want to give us a link to it. We can ask Nicola to set up a link for their book if he can sell them and direct, because again, we like to support the smaller independent bookstores, especially those who are very supportive of our mission and help us in that. The other thing I wanted to say was a lot of talk about being about collecting stories and what's going to happen to them and how we pass them on. And it's great that Chicago and the Casa Italia was able to collect these stories and put them in a book and have a lasting, collect an ensemble of them. We try at Noya, our now signature event, we try to do in October around Italian Heritage Month, is called La Tavola, where we just do with that. We gather Italian American women and their friends, and sometimes an everybody's Italian in the room, around a table in a social gathering. But the idea is to tell the stories of the women who went before us, the women who you don't see in the history pages, like Adriana Trigiani, who's a famous author, writer, film producer, and She is a member of our board, and she spoke at our first Atavola, and she talked about how 50% of history is not being recorded because it's 50% of the history is women, and nobody is saving their stories or compiling them. I mean, that's maybe a little bit of exaggeration, but now you see more and more Italian writers, women getting published. And it's interesting that Christina mentioned still the 7 or 8 Deaths of Stella Fortuna, one of my favorite books by this young author, Juliet Grams. She's a member of our group. We've had books, and she's been selling her book at IM Books, but she also was one of the women that we honored is a wise woman tradition in January to celebrate the Epiphany. Noya honors 3 wise women in each region for their accomplishments and what they've done. That's memorable. And so our other goal is to collect these stories. I mean, last year we had Adriana Trigiani lead the discussion, and we tried to collect stories from that particular event. And this year we had 2 other, authors and influencers. Anna Francesa Gass, who started out in corporate communication. She's now a chef, culinary influencer. She writes for the New York Times, cooking, and she's starting her own TV show on Monday night. I think it's FYI station called Instant Italian. And she's a young, dynamic Italian woman who honors her parents' roots, her mother's roots from Calabria. And she started by recording recipes of women from around the world, but not only the recipe itself, but the stories behind it. And that was her first book called Heirloom. And it records why the importance of certain recipes, because they had some kind of traditional story behind it. So that's another. And then Alison Camerata, who was an anchor at CNN, she actually has left the station recently, but she recently wrote a memoir about growing up, and a lot of that growing up Italian, and a lot of some of the self-hating. It's a little bit in there where she grew up in New Jersey, but the story of her father and her mother, how their roots bring them close together. So we are still looking to collect those stories. We haven't been as successful as putting together our own book, but we have Ellen and I trying to dedicate a page on the webpage, and also in the future, hopefully have a published collection like that. But I also, if you're not a member, I hope you will consider joining Noya. Ellen, I could put the link in the chat box, but we also, what our mission really is to engage, educate, and empower women of Italian descent so that they can make sure that it's passed on to the next generation, because Siamo Arrivate, we weren't always here at this point, and that we have to tell the younger women that it wasn't so easy, 40 years ago when Noya was first founded, to be an independent Italian woman, and that, we sort of fly in the face of the old stereotype of the Italian patriarchy, but, and even in all respect to all the men in the room, sometimes women never found a place outside of the home. And so that's one of the reasons, why Noya exists. We're trying to help support women like that. Is there anything else that we wanted to bring up tonight?
There's a question for you. They're asking if you ever consider an international literary competition on specific topics suggested.
Well, that'd be very interesting. We're having part of it is, just having the board is really all volunteers, and Eleanor is one of our 2 employees. So it's hard to do something on that scale, but if we have the support and we have people here knowledgeable can help us do that, maybe we can, end up find a backer who maybe would be able to have fund an award for this. We do now fund scholarships, and we're doing it at our annual spring luncheon on May 3rd in New York City. But we're always, interested in new ideas. If you have some suggestions for us, you can, write to us at the website, or our email, noya@noya.org, or you can meet directly, ptinto@noya.org. We'd love to hear from you. We just don't always have the woman power to implement all these ideas. But I just said to thank, everybody here who participated, who hung in with us online, wherever you are. And I hope it's amazing. I counted at least 8 different states and a representative from Italy on here. So it's good to know that there are people outside the Northeast who tell you. I'm actually in Florida now. So it's good to hear from people all around the country. And again, we're available for your comments. Was there anybody else on the panel who had a question for somebody else? We heard Letizia, did you have any other closing remarks before we sign off?
No, I have to say that I'm very happy to be part of this group. I love all the story, so different, including mine. And I hope to come more often to the group. And I want to enroll myself and check the NOIA. What I didn't know anything. I never knew anything about this organization. And I was a feminist for the first time in Italy. So I know I am probably the oldest of the group because I'm 78. So you understand, born in 46, the 60, the 70, I remember I was part of a UDI, Unione Donne Italiane, and so I love it with the respect and love,
Thank you. I also do a couple, I see at least one member of our board on here. It's Maria Tambori, our former chair. It's calling in from New York. It's good to see you here, Maria, too. I know, did I miss any other board members or anybody else have questions? And yes, Letizia, it'd be great, to continue. I said, Ivana, can you unmute if you have a question? I can't hear you. Ivana, you have to unmute.
It is no
Ivana, we can't hear you. There you go.
I just want to tell you, this is really wonderful. We are connected in a way because I'm the chair of the Italian Welfare League, again, an all women organizations, and we do a lot together. So I think this was really wonderful. I hope you keep doing this. And I'm sorry I missed the tavola that you had with the writers, but I am in touch with Adriana and she's fabulous. Yeah.
Yeah.
This is
Well,
a
actually,
wonderful night.
that's what I forgot to mention. I have a copy of the book here, and Adriana wrote one of the testimonials to the book on the back.
Great.
And she wrote about the book, and she thanked Dominic Candelera, Ada and Julie Weiss, and Frank Piero for putting this together and helping us. And so actually I want to thank Dominic for being here and putting, I think, the watch group together. And of course, Marina and Maria and Christina for taking the time to do this, and especially Frank, who brought the book to our attention and it's helping us to understand more that we can do.
And Pat, I will bring it to the attention of, I'll get the book and I'll bring it to the attention to the board meeting next week when we have a board meeting to our group. So that we can.
And we had, and Maria Laurino represented, the other part, she's from New York, about the documentary. So I was thinking that would be nice to be able to, I saw the documentary a long time ago, but maybe we can find a way to show that again and have another discussion so that, that everybody.
We need to talk, ladies. We need to talk.
Okay, great. I actually just have one question, quick personal question for Marina. Where in Abruzzo is your family from? I get to unmute.
Are you asking me?
Well, you can answer too, but
can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
But I had asked Marina because she mentioned before Abruzzo, but I don't know if Ivana, if you're from Abruzzo too, I'd be interested.
Oh, that's interesting.
No, I was born and raised in Genova. And my grandparents from my father's side are from Piemonte, and from my mother's side and from my father's side in Genova. That's why I grew up in Genova. Yeah.
Oh, great.
And I came here as a teenager, so I have a whole story.
Beautiful city. All right, and Marina,
Pat, thank you. I was born in the largest mountainous area of Abruzzo. That is, it is Gran Sasso, and it is L'Aquila, my town. And then my family had a little house. I think, but half an hour from L'Aquila. And I used to spend some weeks in the summer even now with my kids, they are grown up today now, and they are 27, 25, and 24. So we are very, very rooted in that, because I was born and raised there. I moved to Rome when I was 10 years old, but my parents kept a strong link with their roots, with those wonderful mountains. And all my family, the whole family is not in Rome, but in Abruzzo. And so it's a really strong link with my roots. And I found a lot of people from Abruzzo here in Chicago.
My parents are born in Provincia di Chieti, in a little town, Villa Santa Maria, near the Val di Sangro. So
my son, that is specializing in cardiology, is a medician, just graduated last year, and is in Chieti. He's specialized
he's a medical school
in Chieti, in the medical school of Chieti, and is very, very happy. And I visited him in Chieti, and last summer we spent some weeks on the seaside near Chieti. And
well, thank you. Yeah, that's great. I just saw somebody. Liz Allen said her mother was from Sulmona, so we have some Abruzzo's presentation here too. Great. Well, thank you very much, everyone. I don't want to keep you on too long, but this has been wonderful, and we hope to see you again, and we'll stay in touch. And if you have any suggestions for other programs, Sonoya, and maybe we can somehow all go to Chicago one day.
Thank you so much. This was tremendous. Thank you. Really.
Thank you.
Thank you, Frank. Yes,
Frank.
And thank you, Eleanor, for holding it all together in our New York City office. But great. Looking forward to seeing you in the future. Bye-bye, Nivana.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.
Ciao. Thank you. Ciao. Bye.